today we're going to be talking through inputting a listing into Matrix, and let's do Fletcher. Is that bad to use Fletcher? I'll just do Cherry Tree again. That'll be fine. Okay, so you're going to be adding new to start. Now, how do I? So on your main screen, you'll go to Add Edit, and then you're going to add a new listing. Why is this? Can I like?
It's like too stretched out or something.
Grr. Okay. So we'll come over here to add new. And then obviously you're going to identify what type of property it is. I would say 95% of the time it's going to be a residential property.
Still kind of strange.
And now let's assume that it's been sold before. Okay. So I've already made one mistake. So let's go back and let's find the most recent past sale of this property. Okay. So we're going to get this BLC number. All right. Then we'll go back to Add Edit, Add New, Residential, and course. And you're gonna wade through these Egyptian hieroglyphics. Goodness gracious. I just wanted the simple number. All right. 1680. Okay, so you'll type in the previous BLC number and you're going to say fill from. Okay, and it's going to pull all of that information from that previous listing and pull it forward. Okay, so this is the most helpful thing that we can have when we list a home is there's recent data to pull from. Okay, so that doesn't mean that I don't have to check anything. It just means that we've got a really good head start. So then you just start working your way through all of these tabs here. Okay, and as you go, consistently save as incomplete and then continue editing. Okay, because if you get too far and then you lose internet or something bad happens, you will have lost everything. So make sure that your agent ID is correct. This will auto-populate in there, obviously, if you're in your MIBOR. Like for me, Maggie and I operate as a team, so I'll put her as a co-agent on my listings. So I would put her in there, refresh that, but not everybody will need to do that, but we do that, and then her contact information will auto-populate in there. So then we can go on. We need to go down here, type in the showings, contact information. I say the appointment center is the contact.
Is that a general phone number you put in there?
Yeah, so that's showing times like local number. Yes. So I put that in. Then we're off to contract info. And here's where you're going to select really some of the most important information. obviously what day you list. So this is going to go live on Wednesday. This is when it expires. Let's say it's a 6-month contract. List price. Want to make sure that one's right. I've done that incorrectly a couple times, and a couple times I've seen, I'll get an email of a listing that's been uploaded by another agent that one of my buyers is looking for, and it'll say like, in this one it would say like 46.9, and you're like, that's a really good deal on that house. How's it 46.9? Well, it's because they forgot a zero in there. So you never want that to happen and then make it live, because that will syndicate everywhere. That will go to Zillow and Realtor.com, and then we look kind of silly to our sellers, right? So you want to make sure that one is correct for sure. Listing type, it's always going to be an exclusive right to sell. Disclosures, seller's disclosure on file. Obviously, for most of our listings, we need seller's disclosures. If there are any inspections or warranties, most of the time that's going to be NA, I would say. Possession, if it's vacant, you can say closing at, or you're probably better off to just almost always say negotiable and just forget about it, because it is negotiable, right? And that's how I sign my listing contracts as well. Available for showing, yes. Showing date, so we would say we want people to see it on the 17th. Direct soliciting, does anybody know what that actually means? Yeah, so I'm going to say no, because don't know what that means there. Okay.
Basically means that if there is a for sale by owner sign in addition to your sign.
Oh, that you can go straight to the seller?
Correct.
Yes, or somebody can go straight to.
There's, I think, like a question mark box.
Oh, okay.
There's for sale by owner or other sign runs on the property indicating the seller is soliciting direct contact from buyers. Right. Yeah. So.
Okay, so.
What would we be doing all this if it were for sale?
Because used to they didn't have exclusive contracts, so there were these non-exclusive like you might hire as the seller all of us as your agent, and whoever got it.
Right.
So it's a lot of work for somebody. That's why exclusives now exist, because there's a lot of work involved.
Okay, so most of the time you're going to be saying no on this one. Public internet, yes. Address on the internet, yes. Description on the internet, yes. Prohibit comments or reviews. I need to read through this one.
I always say no. Or yes, prohibit. So like they're not putting reviews and comments about, oh, this house is so overpriced, I would never buy it. We don't want them. We don't want.
Yeah, so it is warm in here. So you can say yes on that, an estimate of value. Now I will say, so like on this listing that I just put up on Friday, we had yes and yes, okay? And I had issues with the syndication of the photos to Zillow. The information went to Zillow, but it said like home for sale. However, when you looked at the photos, it was just like a Google Maps image of the home. And obviously we don't want that to be the case. So I went in and I was like, is there something that we've done that would create that issue? And I toggled these to no. And then within like 30 minutes, it had fixed itself. Now, I don't know if that was a coincidence or if Zillow's algorithm somehow has said if people say no to these, that they're not going to syndicate all the information. I don't know. All I can say is that I did that and it was solved. So who knows what the answer was there. But I think you're fine to try them as yes and yes to prohibit these things. But then as soon as I make a listing live, I'm checking within about 30 minutes, Realtor.com, Zillow, all these, because your sellers will be looking there and they want to make sure that their home is everywhere. And if it's not, you want to catch that lack of syndication before they do, right? So obviously make sure all these are selected. Zillow used to be an option there, but since they're a lovely brokerage in our board now, we don't have to select that. They get the information automatically. Thanks, MIBOR. BAC, percentage amount, 3% or whatever it is. Variable rate commission, you need to disclose this. Basically, if in your listing contract you have an agreement with the sellers that if you get limited agency and you're representing both sides, that you lower your commission. Okay, so if you've agreed to that with your sellers, we've got to disclose that to other agents, basically. Okay, so I'm going to say no because I did not agree to that. And again, we're saving, we're moving on. So maybe just as a point of reference, every time you get through one of these, or you feel like you've input a significant amount of information, save it, go back to continue editing. Okay.
If I can insert real quick.
Yes, please do.
Don't hit the back button. Don't hit the arrow
Yeah.
back. It'll cancel everything out.
Yeah. So I don't know if you heard on the microphone, but do not hit the back button. Do not hit the arrow, you said?
The back arrow.
Yeah, the back arrow. It will lose whatever you just put in. Okay.
Hit the save and then complete.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there any time where you would suggest loading it from Realist or tax record?
Yes. So we'll get there. Yep.
You're so smart.
Sorry.
Jump ahead.
You're at minute 18.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're still at 11:52. So, okay, so we're on to location. Okay, so again, it's been sold before, so it pulled all this data for us, which we love. As far as legal description, you're going to want to go to the tax records, make sure that that's correct, because believe it or not, this previous agent may have made a mistake, and that's not correct on their listing. So make sure all this information is correct. As far as the mapping of it, I say map from address, and I would say 99.9% of the time that is correct. Sometimes it will be wrong, and you'll have to actually go in and change the map location, but I would say most of the time mapping from address is correct. Okay, and you're going to want to make sure that's correct, because if it's incorrect and somehow your listing is on a line of Brownsburg and Avon and people are out there searching specifically on a line, you want your listing to fall within where it's supposed to be, so that prospective buyers aren't missing that. Okay. Schools, you can select a few different schools here to signify which schools serve that home. General. So your bill, is it new construction? No. Is the tax ID correct? It should be if it pulled from the previous listing. Property description. So you're going to say, this is the most beautiful home ever. Please pay us in Bitcoin, or whatever you want to say there. Agent remarks. I always say, please send all inquiries or offers to Trent at rise-indy.com or 317-755-7055. And then if there are exclusions or anything, seller is excluding heirloom chandelier in dining room. Okay, things like that. Those will be in your listing contract too. These are things that are fixtures that should be attached. However, they're taking them with them because they mean something to them. Okay, so you want to list those exclusions here, and then also those exclusions really need to be in the purchase agreement too. Okay, so you may say in agent remarks, please exclude all items listed above. Okay, so that the buyer's agent knows I need to put these on the PA because they're serious about those. Okay.
Is there anything you can't put in the property description for like discriminatory reasons or anything?
Yes.
Yes, right.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Things like that you might think would be great is like family home. This is a great family home. You really can't say things like that. This is a great home for
Basically,
Republicans.
It's a great home
you
for-
can't say things like that, right? So here's the best thing I've ever heard as far as guidance from that. It was from an attorney. He said, keep it about the sticks and the bricks and not the pricks. Now, that's kind of a crass way of saying it, but what he's saying is talk about the home and not the people, and you'll be fine. Okay? So as far as the property description, describe the property. And you could say great for entertaining, right? Entertainer's backyard. That's fine because anybody can entertain anyone in their backyard. But you can't say it's a great backyard for a family, of 4. Not only are you pigeonholing your listing, via description, but you're also discriminating against other people. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So just keep it about the house and you'll be fine. Virtual tours, if you go, say you get a great listing and you want to do like a drone tour or something, they'll send you like a Vimeo link and you can put that link in here. If it's branded, like if you have your personal branding at the end of it, it needs to go in the branding section. If it's just about the home and there's none of your branding on there, it'll go in the unbranded. Okay, you can put that link there, and then that will also syndicate to these third-party websites. Okay. Rooms and square footage. This is where you're really hoping that the property has been sold before, because if it hasn't been, you're taking your little tape measure or your laser thing and you're getting all of this. Yeah, step it off, and
then you just say room sizes are
approximate. They're 12s of John's Aldo shoes. Yeah. So that's where we're thankful at the bottom of the listing sheets. It says this information is not guaranteed, basically.
Deemed reliable.
Yeah. But you'll want to make sure all of this information is correct. How many levels is it? Is there a basement? What's the source of that footage? Is it the assessor? Is it a previous appraisal? Is it the broker from being measured? I'd say most of the time it's going to be the assessor. But like on this one, we're actually going to say broker because my folks added a sunroom, a Four Seasons room that is conditioned. It is livable square footage now. Okay, so that was not on the previous listing. So we're going to say broker, okay? And we're adding in those footage, that footage based off the measurement of it. And that's a pretty easy one. But
So how do you get that? So you just look at the assessor and then you go measure the sunroom?
That's how I do it.
Yeah. So what if you feel like the assessor's numbers are way off? How are you going to measure for accuracy?
Yeah. Good question. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. Do they have a previous appraisal? That would help. I mean, I guess if you have to, you go in and you're gonna room by room. But this square footage is 50 shades of gray. It is not. It's like, are they counting the hallway square footage? I mean, there is some give and take to that. So, I don't know if you can hold yourself to like, I'm going to have every square inch of this documented and exactly right, because I don't, like pantries. We're not measuring pantries and adding that into the square footage, I mean, we're really relying on the assessor a lot here to do that work for us and have it accurate. But I think you just got to do, the best you can. Do you have a better answer than that?
I know, like the assessors and appraisers, they measure it from the outside, so that's how they can get all of it. So if it's 2 equal floors, the tough part is if it's like one floor is the main level and then there's a loft that's like not full,
Like a 2-story entryway,
Yeah, like that's not
like,
going to take.
Yeah.
So you take and you measure the outside. You do the math and you say, okay, well, there's 2 floors and they're equal, so they're both 1,200 feet. So it's 20 2,400 feet.
Mhm.
You know, that's I know a lot of the appraisers do that. Obviously, the basement, I would say 9 times out of 10 is going to be the same footprint, unless it's a half, right? As what the main floor is. So if it's a full basement and you know what the main floor is, well, now you know what the basement is, because those walls are going to be poured and they're not going to do it differently.
Right.
You back out your garage square footage, 2-car garage, 3-car garage. You can do the math, back that off of it, because they're not going to put basement under garage.
Right.
And you just kind of learn some of those tricks as you go, but it is tough when you have to measure it yourself.
Yeah.
I've never had to hire somebody, but that
We know an agent that was at the previous brokerage we were at, that he's not really the team leader on that team would tell him not to do this, but he's a nice guy. And so if we call him and we're like, hey, Ron, we got a tricky one here. I'll give you $100 to go measure this, fill out the data sheet, bring it back to us. He will go do that for us. So if you get in a real pinch, let us know and we can get somebody out there to do that. That would be the easiest way of making that problem go away.
So if you have any kind of add-on, like you were saying, like
Mhm.
I have clients that just finished their basement, so previous listing didn't have any of the basement rooms
Yeah.
in there. They now have 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and like a great room in the basement.
Yeah.
You do, now that I've measured those rooms, go into broker because I'm doing that?
I believe
versus-
that's the appropriate way of doing it. And then you're probably going back into general and putting in agent to agent. Here's how we came up. Like the footage on the BLC is not going to be reflected on the assessment. And then here's how we came up with what we came up with,
Okay.
right?
So then if you have a room that's a weird shape and size, you're obviously estimating. Like
Yeah.
The great room is in a T shape. I just
Yeah.
did like 31 by 31.
And I go to where the meat of it is
Yeah.
and take those measurements, So sometimes you'll have like a bedroom that has like a window in it. So there's a little cutout where there's like 2 feet or 3 feet that's maybe 2 feet longer. I don't go there because it's not really usable space. So if I have a laser, I'm shooting the meat of the room where people can actually put furniture. Yeah, you can put a fern in that little thing, but you're not putting a bed there, right? So just trying to be as fair as possible on that
You
kind of
just
stuff.
mentioned an agent. This is
Yeah, approximately. And the VLC does that for you,
great.
but yeah. So window coverings, blinds and things like those are included, right, per the purchase agreement, unless your seller's excluding them. So you go through and toggle those. Flooring, you want to make sure, if it was carpet, but they've switched it to hardwood, you definitely want to make sure that you're getting all those changed, what level each room is on, all that fun stuff. Then if you have a room to add, like sunrooms, 22 by 15, it's on the main, it's carpeting, there are no window coverings, okay? Now that's going to pop that in there, but what it's not going to do is automatically do this footage calculation for you, okay? So you would have to do that. You'd have to take 22 times 15, come up here and add it there, okay? So that when it populates, it's got your main floor footage correct, okay?
What did it not add, sorry?
So just because you add this room here,
Oh, yeah. Oh, got it. Okay.
it's not going to add this footage,
Got it.
okay, up here. So you've got to do that, okay? Oh, this is a good one. Basement, if it's 100% finished, you'll say that. A lot of times what you see is 75 plus because, maybe there's a mechanical room or something down there and they've finished everything but the mechanical room. You'll put 75 plus. Sometimes you'll get a seller that says, it's 100% finished. And it's like, well, sort of. Tax information. You want to make sure that we've got the proper tax info in there.
And you can get that from Realist.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
go verify it.
exemptions, you want to make sure if those are on there that those are disclosed. If it's none, say none. That way the buyer knows they don't have a homestead on it currently. They're probably going to have to pay higher taxes, until their homestead exemption hits, right? So that's kind of important.
You might explain that more, like how those exemptions work on a yearly basis.
So basically, you mean like the point of a homestead?
No, when they come into effect. If they don't have it and they buy it in May, when is it going to be?
Well, do you know the exact way that?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
If you buy a home with no home exemption, you're going to have about a 2% limit on the assessed value for your taxes. So if the assessed value is $200,000, your taxes might be $4,000, right? If you have a homestead and mortgage exemption, that caps it at 1% or thereabouts,
Roughly.
which would be $2,000, right? So if you bought this home, let's say, and there was no homestead and no exemption, the person just owned it outright, used it as a rental. That's where we see them not having homestead exemptions a lot. Let's say that's the case. You buy this home in June, and the way those work is we pay all of our taxes 1 year behind. So when we're paying our May taxes of 2021, we're actually paying for January of 2020 through June of 2020. So 1 year full behind. So when those exemptions are calculated, it's going to be in effect for the year previous. So when you close in June on that house, you pay the higher taxes because you're paying the year before through the end of that year. And then on your next, so you would pay the November installment, it would be high. You would still have your escrows being high until your next installment, which would be May. Your next installment, May of, so in this case, 2022, your taxes would reduce. You would have excess funds in your escrow account. Eventually, the bank will naturally assess that and say, I have too much funds in here, and they will give the owner a check back. Hopefully that you're getting that check back. Otherwise, you can ask for, as an owner, an escrow analysis, which you can say, hey, my taxes changed. I was at a 2%, now I'm at a 1%. I need an escrow analysis. You could call for that in January or February. It'll naturally happen on that May date. So if you want those funds faster, you ask for it. If you don't, you just wait. It'll naturally happen. But then by May, those should fall back because now May of 2022, you're paying for January 2021 through June 2021. Does that make sense?
Clear as mud. Yeah.
Well, continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some weird text.
It's just funny because we just bought a house and I'm like trying to apply it to my life, but we closed in December, so we are paying, I guess, for 2020 now. Is that true?
Your May installment will be 2020's taxes.
Okay.
And that's why you get a credit at closing from the sellers.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you have exemptions on that home that you bought?
I don't know.
Because you would now. If you bought it in December, if a home doesn't have exemptions, the best time for you to buy it is December because you're going to put those exemptions on it before the end of the year so that they will.
I mean, I know we did the homestead thing and it went through.
Yeah.
And you're golden.
So it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Possible financing, so a lot of times here you're going to select, the big ones, conventional insured, FHA, which they have is Fed HA, and then, VA, or if it's in a rural area where USDA financing is a possibility, you're going to say USDA. If it's a property that is distressed, that is in really poor condition, and you know that there's no way that FHA, VA, USDA are going to approve that, then you're going to say conventional, insured conventional, or if it's a total dumpster fire and you just want to say cash only, then I would say cash only. Okay.
So I'm not selecting those. Is that just limit searches for that information?
Potentially, yes. Yes. Most agents are not going to set up. I've never set up a buyer search based on financing types, but somebody may.
There's some condos that don't take
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. So there are some condos that you list that will not accept FHA financing, and so you'll want to be real clear on that. And the way to know that is if it says HPR
Yep.
in the legal description, then they do accept, or they
do
don't.
not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it says HPR in the condo's legal description,
Or
they do not accept
Correct.
FHA
if it
financing.
has a lot number, they do.
If it has a lot number, they do. Your lender would be a real good resource on that. Okay, so whoever your preferred lender is, even though it's your listing and they're probably not going to get any business out of them, call them and say, hey, is this going to qualify for FHA or not? And they'll be able to tell you. But just as a rule of thumb, look at the legal and that'll tell you. Okay.
Does that apply to VA as well?
I don't know that
That-
VA has a,
They don't have a,
yeah,
They don't have a
they don't have to approve. a
Yeah.
condo.
I think it's just FHA.
I run into multiple situations where they do not accept VA financing in
Really?
condo units. So,
Okay,
because I have VA buyers right now, and we've been turned away multiple times.
Interesting.
with VA.
Yeah, I've never,
You should ask. Just call your lender and
I
ask them.
have, yeah, and that's what we've been doing before we even go see it, because we've multiple times that we've gone in
And they
they'll
say no.
well, we don't take FHA, so we don't take VA,
Mm.
or like
the listing
the
agent says
local
that?
HOA, yeah, doesn't
Interesting.
accept VA.
You know, I do think I remember something about that.
I've never had one, but yeah, I believe that. I mean, there are a lot of similarities between what VA and FHA like or don't like, so I guess that makes sense.
And there's
I've just
some
never
that
run
do
into
VA,
it.
but not FHA. Like, it's real weird.
Yeah.
And so we've been in multiple situations where we've gotten screwed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure the fees are appropriate or correct here. Is there more than one association? Yes or no? There are listings out there that have multiple HOAs that serve them. For instance, Clear Creek in Brownsburg, there is a master HOA because there are single-family homes as well as condos in there. And so I just showed a condo last night where it's in Clear Creek and it has not only the $365 a year HOA fee for the master HOA, it also has a condominium homeowners association that is $95 a month that takes care of the building maintenance on the exterior, mows the yard, so on and so forth. Okay, so there are listings that will fall into both. Now there's not a place here to put two fees, but what you could put is one of them and then go back to agent remarks and say, here's the other one, here's the total HOA amount for the year. Okay. Contact information, if you've got this contact information, great, put that in there for the management company. Say everything that it includes, if it's $500 a year HOA, does it have a pool and a playground and snow removal? Does it include the trash? Things like that, okay? Or if there's no association, put no association. If it's out in the middle of the country, you'll put that. People will love to see that. People do search by that. People do exclude things in HOAs if they specifically want, something rural. Features, just going to go through. This is probably the second most important page. I mean, they're all very important, but to sellers, especially on your higher end homes, where they bought that home because of A, B, and C, they're going to want to see that reflected in their listing. Okay, so pay real close attention to all of these things here. And these numbers here signify how many of these you can check. Okay, so if it's a nice home, you're going to want to check everything that you can. Okay, because people, if you think psychologically about who's looking at a specific type of property, if your sellers bought that because of those things, the buyer of that home is probably very similar, and they're going to be looking for the same things. Okay, so so just pay very close attention there. And there's a ton of them, so I can't go through them all, but I would just scroll through each one of these to make sure you've got everything. Okay, these are things that people will search by. Okay. Water source, is it on a well or is it on city sewer? Sewer source, is it a septic? Is it on city sewer? You want to have that stuff correct. You know, if it's out in the country and there's no high-speed internet, you don't want to say there is and there isn't, things like that. You don't have that right. You know, water heater, what type is that? So just go through all of these things. Is there like special accessibility? You would want to, you know, set those parameters there. If you want to get real into the weeds and go to, you know, talk about like specific certifications that the home, maybe it's a newer home and it's got all these great green certifications and everything, you would want to signify that there.
You want to switch over to MIBOR and show them how they get to a profile sheet? So there's something called a profile sheet, which this is how we get all of the information into the system. The profile sheets.
Where is it? I never get it.
Go to BLC login.
No.
Sorry, might have just canceled here. Let's see.
We'll see.
BLC forms. Yep. And then it's the first link.
Yeah. This one here.
So when you go to the house, you're thinking, how am I going to know all of this information when I come back to the office? Well, this is how right here. This is your profile sheet. This answers all the questions on your inputting of the system. So when you go to the house, you spend an hour or so, I mean, whatever time it takes you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I first started, it took me a lot longer to do it because I just didn't know what I was looking at. So I'd read it, and then I'd walk all over the house. I'd come back to the office. I would forget something. I have to go back to the house. And I forgot to check the water heater. Was it gas or electric? So I drove back to the house and checked it. So all of this stuff, if you want to one trip and done, take this sheet with you, print it out, fill everything out while you're at the house. I just kind of leave it with the set the expectation with the seller that, hey, I'm going to spend about an hour just kind of walking around doing some things with, you know, my paperwork here. Just want to get everything accurate. And they're like, okay, do your thing. A lot of times I do this when the photographer's there. I try to couple those two together so that they're not expecting me to sit there and have a conversation with them. It's like, hey, photographer's going to do their thing. I'm going to do mine. These are the things that I'm going to be looking for. I may have a couple questions for you. If I do, I'll let you know. And then let them go do their thing. And then I fill this out, which all this gets you to, scroll down a little bit, the features. This is the section you was just on. So you're going to go through here and you're going to just put a check mark next to all the things that apply. You come back, and it's pretty, and Patty, you can probably speak to this more, but it's pretty like line for line, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so page 1 is page 1. The first box is the first box, so they match very well. So you don't have this like, do I remember what was in the upstairs storage room? Was the furnace up there, or you don't have to think about that. It's all there on your paperwork, and then you just put that in your file and save it. Theoretically, even if a house has a previous listing, a profile sheet should be completed. I would say they don't always get completed, but it's going to give you the best information and the best like plan of action as you're going to list and sell the house. You're going to know a lot more. People are going to ask you questions, and you're not going to have to say, I don't know. And you're going to be like, oh, yeah, the furnace room's in the basement. It's a gas water heater. You know, you're going to know those because you already filled it out once, rather than sucked all the information and like glance to the BLC sheet like I've done before.
Okay. Oh, it's still up. Good. Okay. So we're through features. Condo lifestyle. If it is a condo, what type of condo is it? Are there common walls? You can disclose all of that. Is it FHA certified? This is where you would say yes or no. This obviously you're just going to really be filling this out on condos, unless it's like if it's a double or an attached townhome, you would use this section as well. Lease auction. This is a different. Well, is this actually signifying if it is for we never list leases, so obviously I don't know. Is this?
You leave it blank for a listing.
Well, yeah.
If you have a lease, you actually.
So there's not an add edit like new. It's residential lease. This is where you actually signify if it's a lease. Huh?
I don't know.
Go to add edit and see. Add new. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is if you do list something for lease, this is where you would do that. I was thinking.
Literally, you would just go in there and click that part.
Yeah.
And your list price is your lease amount.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that there was a whole other section for that, but there's not. So this is where you would fill out all of that information. So office exclusive listing only. This is not something that we really dabble in. John, do you want to talk about that at all?
Sure. Yeah, we don't do this a lot, but essentially you can make a listing exclusive to just the people in your office. In this market, that's kind of nice in some ways, and it's kind of could be hard because it's still limited or dual agency. So it's nice to open it up potentially to, Mandy has a buyer and I've got a seller. Well, Mandy doesn't have to compete with 10,000 agents. She's competing against 16, right? So that's a way better advantage for the buyer. But the question becomes that we've kind of discussed is that the best thing for the seller? Because it's like we have, in that scenario, I have a fiduciary responsibility to her, and you have a fiduciary responsibility to yours. So I'm like, hey, maybe listing it, you're going to get the best money. But also, if I know that I'm working with someone on my team or a colleague that I feel like I'm going to have a better chance of it closing than just some random Joe Schmo that I don't know. So there's this, there's kind of both and. I'd still say there's value for both, but also there's the potential they may not get as much money in this market. In a different market, that'd be a very different answer. 4 or 5 years ago, open it up to your office for a couple days and then go to market. I think that'd be fine.
Yeah.
It's just the market's going to depict whether this is good, bad, or otherwise. So basically, it's just you open it up to your office first, and then you maybe or maybe not sell it before it goes to everyone.
Yep.
That's just a seller decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Well, what is status?
Active, back up.
It's not letting me click on that.
Go to the status on the far left. Active. You click that. Yeah. That's all it is.
Yeah. I don't know why it's not letting me click on it, but most of this is pretty self-explanatory. You just got to take the time to just go through it, and then when you're done, you can hit validate, and it's going to red flag anything that's not filled out appropriately, or if you've left something blank, and then it'll have a little exclamation point here, okay? And you'll just go through and you'll solve each of those problems. Solve it, save it, go to the next one. Solve it, save it, go to the next one, okay? Until you're all done. Then what I'm gonna cancel this input, and then I'm actually gonna go to, so this is this home. This is the actual one that we're working on right now. Okay, so say I've gone through everything. I save it as incomplete. It's going to bring up this link. Okay, click on that. That's going to be a rough draft of the BLC sheet. And I print that off and I stare at it. And I just, if anything pops out to me is wrong, I'll fix it, go back in, fix it, print it off. I'm weird. I like to print things off so that I can digest it, mark it up better. And then when I think I've got it ready to rock, send it to the sellers. Say, here, look at this. Is there anything that I'm missing that, should be on there? And they're going to be like, oh, well, yeah, there's window coverings in the sunroom, something like that. Okay. Change it. Everybody signs off on everything. Boom, you're ready to go live. Okay. Let's see here. So now let's say we're going to add new.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
And I just saw it on there. Every single time I enter a listing, I always have no idea what this is. And I ask the question every single time I enter a listing and never remember what it is. The solid tax waste.
Solid waste.
Tax.
Yeah.
Where do you find that information?
If it's Marion County, it's yes, because it's
That's the only one.
yeah, that I know of.
Yeah.
Marion County includes their trash fee in their taxes. That's all it's asking. If their trash is included in what they pay for their taxes.
I don't know
So-
why every single time I'm like, I don't
What
remember
is
what
that?
that is.
Yeah,
Every
it's just
single
trash basically. Is the best way to look at it.
Okay.
Marion County, yes. Everywhere else, no. That's
Any
a good
place
rule of
in
thumb.
Marion County, any place in Marion
Marion County tax. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
You good?
So say you have the listing and it's not been sold before, but you want to try and pull as much data as you can. Okay. You can go to fill from realist, and then okay, and then you would say fill from that. Okay. Now that's going to get you a lot of the same information that the other one did, but a lot of it's going to be left out. Okay. So that's going to get you a 25% head start versus the other one was like an 80% head start. This is going to get you a little bit of a head start, but you're going to have to go through, and this will be different on each of these. This one didn't give us, a whole lot here, but it'll get you a little bit of information, and then you'll just have to go through each of these things and fill it out, line by line. Obviously the address is in there, so you can say map from address. It got you basically the bare minimum. So that's where you would pull it from there. Now I will say I have had limited success with pulling from realist. In my experience, it's basically you've got a prior sale and you're golden, or you're almost just starting from scratch. I wouldn't count on a whole lot of information from realist, but that is option number 2, and then option number 3 would be add new residential, start with a blank listing.
It's painful.
And that's where you cry briefly.
Long day.
Yeah. And set the expectations with your sellers that you're going to need to move in for a week and get all the information right. And then you just do the exact same thing and fill out all of these, Save as incomplete, validate, save as incomplete, validate until you got it right. Okay. Now the other thing that you'll be working on is photos. So you'll manage those photos in the incomplete status, upload all of those, get them into the order that you want. You can drag them and place them where you want. Okay. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Some agents.
And you like to do it like as you're walking.
I do.
past.
You'll develop your own.
When they're all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll kind of develop your own flavor as far as what you want to do there. But I try and get a couple of good exteriors, and then the general entryway. I also try and get to the kitchen as quickly as possible. If it's a nice kitchen, you're going to want to get there because you want to be able to see that within the first few photos. Okay, so that's kind of it's like kitchen. If there are any bedrooms on the main where it makes sense to get those, earlier in the listing photos, great. If not, then if they're all upstairs, I'm going to the master. And we're going, because that's what sells homes, right, is kitchens and masters. So that's where you would do that. And then you can also manage showing time in here and get your listing set up the way you want for whatever type of showing it is. Is it appointment required? Is it if it's vacant, you're going to say go and show. You'll put in all of the seller's contact information here so that they can be notified of the showings, obviously, either on their phone or their emails, and approve those. Are you allowing overlapping showings? Right now it's going to default to no. Back in the day we used to allow overlapping showings all the time, but with COVID we're trying to discourage that as much as possible, although you're starting to see it get back to normal where it's just kind of a frenzy. So you'll make sure all of that information is correct. If there's special notes for the showing agent, please remove shoes, so on and so forth. You'll put that information in there. You just want to make sure all that's good to go before you make it live.
Do you want to talk about the rules, like applying rules if you don't want to show it, like we just did?
Yeah, so
Down. Right above that yellow
yeah,
line.
so if you want to exclude a specific time, like say, so on this listing that I just had on Friday, the sellers only wanted to show it from Friday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Okay, so you would add a new showing rule, and Patty, walk me through this because this is kind of counterintuitive.
You have to show the times you don't want it to be shown. So instead of saying, this is what I want it shown, you have to say when you don't want it to be shown. So in this one, we had to set a rule.
So you would say like showing 5p through 8p, and then it would be...
And then you select the time,
and then you would go...
So this one, we had to block it out, say from 8 o'clock a.m.
to 5 p.m. Okay.
And then right below that, you put in the date you want that to occur.
So that would say it was today. And then if you want that repeated, then you would say repeating, or if it's just a one-time thing.
In this case, we had it on Friday. We didn't want it to be shown until 5. On Saturday, he wanted it to be shown all day. So we didn't have to do anything with Saturday, but then we had to block out Sunday. And then we ended up blocking out days after that.
Yeah.
So then you have to go in and do a separate rule for
if it's a different
9 p.m. to 12 p.m.
So would you say that and open it again? And just keep adding?
Say that
It's
again.
ending at 8. Like they don't want anybody in after 8. Do
Yeah.
you have to do a separate rule for 9 p.m. to 12 p.m.? Or 12 a.m.?
I would think
No.
that would be customary. You wouldn't show it after 9 o'clock, probably.
Yeah, so...
Steps right now.
Yeah, I don't even think it's...
So you didn't, is what I guess.
No,
I'm asking,
yeah,
right?
we did
So
not. Yeah,
You just assumed that
yeah.
they would decline it
Yeah.
if it were
Yeah.
after 8 p.m.
So that's how you would do that. Obviously, access details. Is it Century Lock? Where's the location of that? I don't really worry about the serial number and all that stuff. Although if you wanted to, it's not a bad idea. But is it on the front door, side door, or whatever on a post? You want to give them all that information. That's pretty much that. So that's about all I can think of. Anything else? Any questions?
Do you want to add supplements?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so supplements, seller's disclosure, utility estimates, HOA docs. This is where you would add those, okay? So you would just say, the description of it, choose the file, and then you can also say what it is here as well. And then you would upload that, save, and then when you're finally approving your listing, go to the supplements tab, click on it, make sure you can see it just like every other buyer's agent would see that. Okay, those are important. I think that's all I got. Okay, very good. 56 minutes.
Ready to go.